Picture a forgotten cave in a sun-scorched desert, where whispers of ancient secrets linger in the air. Hidden inside a clay vessel lies a manuscript so old it could reshape the story of faith. What truths do these lost scriptures conceal? Why were some buried, while others faded into oblivion? Ancient scriptures, with their fragile parchments and faded inks, are far more than relics. They are time capsules linking humanity to its spiritual origins. From the Dead Sea Scrolls to medieval codices, these texts preserve not only sacred words, but also glimpses of the cultures, conflicts, and beliefs of bygone eras. Many, like the Codex Sinaiticus or the Gnostic writings of Nag Hammadi, survived against all odds, while others, hinted at in ancient records, remain missing, fueling speculation and archaeological quests. The allure of these manuscripts lies not just in their content, but in the enigmas they hold. Omitted texts, debated translations, and even potential historical alterations. This script delves into the realm of lost biblical texts across 3 chapters. First, we'll explore their origins, examining how they were crafted and why some vanished. Next, we'll uncover archaeological finds that brought forgotten scriptures to light, like the Dead Sea Scrolls and the puzzles they unveiled. Finally, we'll tackle the controversies surrounding apocryphal texts and efforts to rewrite religious history. Our journey will traverse deserts, monasteries, and hidden libraries, where each page turned might reveal a long-buried truth. Chapter 1: The Roots of Biblical Texts. Ancient scriptures emerged in a world where writing was a sacred act. Around the 3rd century BCE, early Hebrew texts, such as those forming the Old Testament, were inscribed on scrolls by meticulous scribes. These writings, often painstakingly copied in monastic settings, were vulnerable to time, warfare, and deliberate destruction. The Septuagint, a Greek rendering of Hebrew scriptures, and early Christian texts of the New Testament, penned in Koine Greek, launched a manuscript tradition that spread across the Mediterranean. Yet, not all survived. Historical records mention works like the Book of the Wars of Yahweh or the Gospel of Judas, now lost, perhaps due to political or religious motives. Crafting these texts was a laborious task. Scribes wielded reed pens and charcoal-based ink, laboring by candlelight. Mistakes were scraped away, but imperfect copies or differing interpretations could yield varied versions of the same text. Moreover, the selection of texts to preserve was shaped by religious authorities. At the Council of Nicaea, 325 CE, Christian leaders began standardizing the biblical canon, sidelining texts deemed unorthodox. This begs the question: how many manuscripts were erased for clashing with official doctrine? The material's fragility also played a role. Parchments made from animal hides, though sturdy, could decay in humid climates, while papyrus, common in Egypt, tore easily. Invasions, like the ruin of the Library of Alexandria, and religious conflicts, such as the persecution of early Christians, obliterated entire collections. Some texts, however, were intentionally concealed. Groups like the Essenes of Qumran hid their scrolls in caves to shield them from Roman invaders. These acts of preservation, often born of desperation, explain why some manuscripts endure today. The enigma of lost texts lies not only in their absence, but in what they might disclose. Could they hold alternate versions of biblical tales, or critiques of ancient authorities? This mystery drives archaeologists and scholars, who see each recovered fragment as a piece of a grander puzzle. Chapter 2: Discoveries that rewrote history. In 1947, A young Bedouin named Muhammad ed-Dib stumbled upon a cave near the Dead Sea. Inside clay jars, he found scrolls that became known as the Dead Sea Scrolls, dating from 250 BCE to 68 CE. These texts included early versions of the Old Testament, sectarian writings, and rules of a mysterious group, likely the Essenes. The find stunned scholars, revealing the oldest known biblical texts and challenging the accuracy of modern Bibles. For instance, the Book of Isaiah from Qumran closely matched current versions, but other texts showed notable differences. Another groundbreaking discovery occurred in 1945 in Nag Hammadi, Egypt. A farmer unearthed 13 codices containing Gnostic texts, such as the Gospel of Thomas and the Gospel of Philip. Written between the 2nd and 4th centuries CE, these works offered alternative Christian perspectives, prioritizing spiritual insight over ecclesiastical authority. Deemed heretical by the early church, they were likely hidden to escape destruction. Their rediscovery sparked debates about the diversity of early Christianity and the canon's formation. These finds raised troubling questions. Why were the Qumran scrolls concealed? Who chose which texts to preserve or destroy? Some theories suggest persecuted groups, like the Gnostics, buried their writings to protect them. Others point to theological disputes, where texts challenging orthodoxy were systematically erased. The Codex Sinaiticus, found in 1844 at St. Catherine's Monastery, offers another clue. Dating to the 4th century, it contains the earliest known New Testament, but includes books, like the Shepherd of Hermas, later excluded from the canon. These discoveries have spurred ongoing searches for lost texts. Archaeologists scour Judean desert caves, while scholars study fragments in museums. Modern tools, like imaging spectroscopy, help decipher damaged texts. But the greatest challenge remains: locating manuscripts still hidden, perhaps in remote monasteries or beneath desert sands. Each find opens a window to the past, yet reminds us how much remains lost. Chapter 3: Controversies and the Influence of Apocryphal Texts. Lost biblical texts are not just archaeological treasures, they are battlegrounds for theological debate. Apocryphal works, like the Gospel of Mary Magdalene or the Book of Enoch, challenge conventional narratives and question the Bible's formation. These texts, often excluded from the canon, offer alternative views on Jesus, creation, and spirituality. The Gospel of Thomas, for instance, portrays Jesus as a sage of wisdom, emphasizing introspection over miracles. Why were these texts rejected? The answer often lies in power. In the 4th century, the Christian Church, guided by figures like Athanasius of Alexandria, established the New Testament canon, selecting 27 books from dozens in circulation. This was as much a political as a theological act. Texts promoting Gnostic ideas or elevating figures like Mary Magdalene were seen as threats to doctrinal unity. Many were burned or hidden, their followers persecuted. The Book of Enoch, with its tales of fallen angels and apocalyptic visions, survived only in the Ethiopian church, while others dismissed it. These controversies persist. Some scholars argue that apocryphal texts offer a truer glimpse of early Christianity before its institutionalization. Others view them as dangerous heresies. The Nag Hammadi find, for example, reignited discussions about the marginalization of women in Scripture, as texts like the Gospel of Mary suggest a greater role for female spiritual leaders. These debates shape modern religious movements and even fuel popular conspiracies, like claims that the church hid texts to maintain control. The hunt for lost manuscripts also feeds tales of intrigue. Speculation about secret Vatican archives or texts stashed in remote monasteries captivates imaginations, though evidence is scarce. Yet, the possibility of new finds keeps hope alive. Each recovered text invites us to rethink history, while reminding us that truth, like the manuscripts themselves, may remain fragmented. Ancient scriptures and their vanished texts are more than artifacts. They are mirrors reflecting humanity's struggles, beliefs, and hidden truths. From scrolls concealed in Qumran's caves to the Gnostic codices of Nag Hammadi, these writings challenge us to question our understanding of faith and history. They reveal a past where spirituality was diverse, contested, and sometimes silenced. Every archaeological find is a triumph over oblivion, yet a reminder of how much remains lost. The mysteries of these texts lie not only in their words, but in the stories of their creation, concealment, and rediscovery. They speak of communities risking everything to preserve their beliefs, scribes devoting lifetimes to copying texts, and archaeologists braving deserts for answers. More than that, they confront us with uneasy questions. Who decided what was holy? What was lost in that choice? As technology advances and new excavations unfold, the hope of uncovering more texts endures. Each fragment offers a chance to rewrite history, to hear silenced voices, and to deepen our grasp of faith's roots. Until then, ancient scriptures continue to captivate, not just for what they say, but for what they might yet reveal. They beckon us to explore the past and perhaps uncover something new about ourselves.